When Bong Joon-ho won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2020 for his film Parasite, making it the first foreign film ever to receive that accomplishment, he said, "Once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to so many more amazing films." This quote has always stuck with me as a movie lover, and I am so happy today to tell you guys about a foreign film that is sweeping the nation right now. Okay, this movie is on so many people's lists for the best film of the year. And it is one that I think has a lot of great Christian morals and messages that can be pulled out of it. I'm talking, of course, about Godzilla -1. Hi, I'm Mateo Rivera, the Cinematic Catholic, and this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to ask, should Catholics go see this movie? I'm going to tell you why Catholics should go see this movie. All that and more coming up next. So I do want to give you guys a little bit of context before diving into what I loved about this movie. This film is produced by Toho Studios. They are the studio in Japan that produced the original Godzilla film back in 1954. This is not in the same continuity as the recent King of Monsters movies. Those are American-made movies. These are American-made. This is Japan. Which means this is a brand new story, and you do not need to see any previous Godzilla movie to understand what is happening in this one. Godzilla -1 is both written and directed by Takashi Yamazaki and is set in post-World War II Japan, following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm also probably going to butcher a lot of these pronunciations. Our main protagonist that we follow throughout this story is a failed kamikaze pilot named Koichi. He was scared and he backed out last minute, and he actually landed his plane on an island where malfunctioning planes are supposed to land. But once the crew checks his plane, they find out very quickly that there was nothing wrong with it. He just abandoned his duty. This is a thread that runs throughout the entire movie, is Koichi's grief of, should I have done my duty? Should I have died in war? Am I a failure for deciding to live? He returns home to find out that everything has been destroyed. Everyone that he loves is dead. Japan has been completely knocked down to level 0. And then Godzilla shows up, wreaks even more havoc, brings more destruction, and knocks Japan even further below 0, -1. There is so much to praise about this movie, both from a filmmaking perspective as well as a moral one. But let's start with the fun stuff. This movie is absolutely beautiful, and I am not just talking about the scenes with Godzilla. I'm talking about the scenery, the ocean, the cinematography is just off the charts. One of the things that you may see online about this film is how it was only made for $15 million, which in Hollywood terms is like scraps and pennies, okay? To put it into context, the average Marvel movie costs around $200 million nowadays, and their CGI has been notably lacking. I have heard some people say that a few shots of Godzilla in this movie are a little bit wonky, but to be honest, I never really noticed anything like that. The monster effects looked pretty solid to me throughout the duration of this movie. Another thing that I absolutely loved about this movie, and I am going to compare it to the American versions for just a second, the biggest complaint that people have with the MonsterVerse films is the human characters are boring. Their stories are just filler until the monsters show up. What this movie does so well is it gives us human characters that we love. It gives us a human story that is so gripping and intriguing, and that's how you know that it's a good movie. You could take all of the Godzilla stuff out of this movie and just have it be a story about Japan rebuilding itself post-World War II, and it would still be a great movie. The Godzilla stuff is just the atomic cherry on top. When Kiyoshi returns home, he finds a woman, Noriko, and a baby that are seeking refuge. Not related to each other, by the way. She just found this baby and nobody was around to take care of it. And so he takes them in and they become this sort of makeshift family taking care of one another, even though Kiyoshi and Noriko are not together. And this is one of the things that really stood out to me about this movie is you see that if he had died in the war, then Noriko and the baby would have had nobody. Kiyoshi and Noriko work together to preserve this child's life who would have otherwise probably starved to death. It is an excellent representation of just how much of a difference one person can make. I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but this movie is full of moments that reminds you about the value of life and why it is important to protect it. Okay, let's talk about Godzilla. I'll be completely honest. Growing up, I was much more of a King Kong fan myself. In fact, Peter Jackson's King Kong is the movie that made me want to pursue a career in filmmaking. So my only real exposure to Godzilla was the American-made films, including Roland Emmerich's 1998 American masterpiece, Godzilla, starring Matthew Broderick. Just kidding, that movie was not good. This was the first time in my life that I had seen Godzilla and been genuinely terrified. This is not the hero Godzilla of the MonsterVerse, and it is not the goofy Godzilla of your dad's VHS collection. This is a monster that ain't playing around. And that was the original intention for the Godzilla character. He is a force of nature, the direct consequence of nuclear warfare. Godzilla is a menace in this movie, and every time he comes on screen, you can't help but get that uneasy feeling in your stomach because you care about the human characters. You want them to survive. I'm going to get into slight spoilers here, but it's only to convey a few of the stronger Christian themes that I found throughout this movie. But if you don't want to know any spoilers, then skip to this time code. As the film goes on, Kiyoshi struggles more and more with his grief of living. Meanwhile, Japan is throwing everything that they have at Godzilla, and it's not doing anything. Japan's military decides that it's best to just kind of clear out and stay out of the way, but the people of Japan are not that ready to just say goodbye to their homes, to their land. And so a group of ex-military band together to form a militia to take down Godzilla once and for all. And this is where I was so happy to really see them drive home that point on the value of life. Because one of the heads of the operation, Doc, gives this speech about how during World War II, Japan fought the war in death, just throwing as many bodies at the enemy as they could and using inhumane tactics like kamikaze pilots. And then he says, in this battle, for our home, we fight in life. And he tells all the soldiers, instead of preparing for battle the night before, go home, be with your families, remember why we are doing this. I know a lot of Christians complain about how movies today don't promote traditional values, and this isn't a Hollywood movie. This is a Japanese movie, so maybe we just need to keep our eye to what's going on internationally. That is another thing that I just wanted to give full disclosure on. This is a movie completely in Japanese with English subtitles. I think you guys probably got that though from the intro. But as somebody that had never seen a foreign film in theaters before, and this being probably my only third or fourth foreign film I've ever watched in my life, I will say that it was not hard to keep up with the subtitles. And I even took my 14-year-old brother-in-law with me who has ADHD, and even he was like, yeah, no, it wasn't hard to keep up with it. Plus, when the big action set pieces are going down, there's not a whole lot of talking, and so you're not going to be distracted from like what Godzilla is doing because you're trying to read like the bottom of the screen and what people are saying. Basically, my point is, no matter what your experience is with foreign film, you're going to have a good time with this movie. I may do a full breakdown of this movie once it's released on streaming, where I can really dive into the excellent moral themes presented in this movie, but for now, you guys are just going to have to take my word on it. You are going to want to see this movie, and you are going to want to see it on the biggest screen possible. This almost topped my #1 spot for movie of the year, but there was actually another movie, and actually a Hollywood movie, that was released this year that, again, I think just showcases some excellent Christian morals and messages, and I'm thinking of doing a full breakdown on it on my other channel, Infinite Homeland. Let me know if you guys would want to see that. The only sort of like warnings I would say is if you have kids that are younger than like 10, some of the Godzilla stuff may be a little scary, but that's about it. Godzilla -1 is a juggernaut of a film and an excellent example of a piece of cinema that is good, beautiful, and true. And as a cinephile, I am rating this a 10 out of 10. I can't believe that that happened as soon as it did, but to rate it anything else would just not be accurate to how I feel about this movie. And from a Catholic rating, I would give this a 9 out of 10. Once again, this movie is packed with great moral messages, and there isn't anything in here that I think contradicts from our Catholic teachings. It's also very funny because a week after this movie came out, Legendary Pictures released their trailer for the next Godzilla Kong Monsterverse film, and it's kind of like when you have two kids and one of them is like a cello prodigy, and then the other one's like, I made this out of macaroni, and you're just like, good job, Timmy. But no, in all seriousness, Godzilla fans are eating good right now. Plus, it's nice to have a variety of content. But guys, that is all for this review. Thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is Mateo Rivera, and until next time, hasta la vista.